Good. Now, can I kindly request now Chatu to start reading the discourse we are going to discuss today? What we usually do is, after the practice, we will have a talk and then a discussion session. And for the talk, we have been all this time taking the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which we have completed a few months ago. And after that, since I was traveling, and we didn't really start another discourse. So I'll be stationed in one place for a few months. So the group suggested that it is high time for us to start a new discourse. So the discourse we have selected is Rathavinitha Sutta, or Race Chariot Discourse. So can I kindly request now Chatu to read the first few sections that we have agreed.
Yeah. I have heard that on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying near Rajagaha in the bamboo forest, the squirrel sanctuary. Then a number of monks from the Blessed One's native land, having completed the rain's retreat in the native land, went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As they were sitting there, the Blessed One said to them, "Monks, whom in our native land do the native land monks, his companions in the holy life, esteem in this way. Modest himself, he gives talks to the monks on modesty. Contented himself, he gives talks to the monks on contentment. Secluded himself, he gives talks to the monks on seclusion. Unentangled himself, he gives talks to the monks on non-entanglement. Having aroused persistence in himself, he gives talks to the monks on arousing persistence. Consummate in his own virtue, he gives talks to the monks on becoming consummate in virtue. Consummate in his own concentration, he gives talks to the monks on becoming consummate in concentration. Consummate in his own discernment, he gives talks to the monks on becoming consummate in discernment. Consummate in his own release, he gives talks to the monks on becoming consummate in release. Consummate in his own knowledge and vision of release, he gives talks to the monks on becoming consummate in the knowledge and vision of release. He is one who exhorts, informs, instructs, urges, rouses, and encourages his companions in the holy life. Sorry, should I continue?
Did you come up to the first version of the third paragraph? First sentence of the first paragraph.
Yeah. So this is the first sentence of the third paragraph. Lord, the monk named Punna Mantaniputta, Mantari's son, is esteemed by native land monks, his companions in the holy life in this way. Modest himself, he gives talks to the monks on modesty.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So you can stop there. Thank you very much. So this is a discourse where the Blessed One asks a question from monk, and the question the Blessed One is asking whether there is anyone in his native place where the Blessed One has come from, which is Rajagaha, whether there is someone who can be considered as a strong leader. And for that strong leader, he is giving some qualifications, some expectations, right? So the expectations he gives is in Pali. I'll just say the words in Pali. First qualification is says apicco. Apicco means modest, and santutto means is contented, and the next one is pavivitto, which means secluded, and asansatto, not mixing with other people, and aradhaviriyo means aroused energy, and sila sampanno is virtuous, and samadhi sampanno is the next one, which is with concentration. And Panya Sampanno is the release. Vimutti Sampanno, knowledge. And then Vimutti Jnana Darsana Sampanno, vision of knowledge. So these are some qualifications that the Blessed One is mentioning for someone who can be considered as a teacher or considered as a leader of monks. These qualifications should be there. And not only that, he has those qualifications, he should have the capacity to lead others as well. He's not just preaching about modesty and contentment and seclusion and the rest of the things. He himself is practicing, and he is able to advise others. He is able to arouse energy among others to do the same thing. And he's a good consultant for the other monks. So such a person, whether there is such a person in the native land, because the Blessed One is no longer in the native land, he's far, far away, and therefore he wants to know whether there is someone like that available, and he's asking from the monk. So when he asks from the monks are saying, yes, Bhante, there is one person, and his name is Punna. And he's called Punna Manthani Putta. Manthani means mother's name. Putta means son. So Blessed One says, there is someone called Punna who is the son of Manthani. So his name is Punna Manthani Putta. So that is how some people were identified during those days, during Buddha's day. So now, after that, the Blessed One is having, not the Blessed One, this discourse goes further, and a very beautiful discussion starts later. So, but today I am not going to go into that. Today I am going to discuss about these points that the Blessed One mentioned about the modesty, contentment, seclusion, and arousing energy, virtue, concentration, release, knowledge, and vision of knowledge. So these are the things that the Blessed One is asking people to talk about, or if someone is talking, these are the things that we must talk about, and not other things. And therefore, we call these are the 10 speeches that one can engage in. If you engage in these things, talking about modesty, talking about seclusion, talking about contentment, talking about virtue, talking about concentration, then such a person will be very spiritual. Such a person will be different from other human beings. Such a person is a person whose mind is advanced. Such a person is different to other living beings, other animals, right? Even if you consider human beings, those who can really talk. And the Blessed One says, when people are talking, they have 32 types of talks. These talks are utter useless, and they are considered as talks that will lead to downfall of human beings, and not to the upliftment of their mind. And those 32 talks are, and it's very relevant because all of us have been in parties, and all of us have been with the society, and even now, more or less, we are in the society. So when you go to the society, we can see these 32 types of talks. So these 32 types of talks start with, I will just, I have the list, I will just tell it for you, although I'm not going to talk in detail about them, and they are very self-explanatory. The 32 types of talks are talks about kings. In other words, talking about leaders, talking about Anthony Albanese, Rajapaksas, and all sorts of these crooked cases. We are talking about king is the first one, and immediately after the first one, the Blessed One is talking about robbers. So it's very relevant to Sri Lanka. The kings are the main robbers in Sri Lanka. So Blessed One has seen this 2,600 years ago. And then the third one, talking about ministers, talking about armies, talking about fears, talking about wars, talking about eatables, talking about drinks, talking about clothes, flowers, scents, relations, vehicles, and villages, hamlets, about towns, about states, about women, about heroes. I think about women should come with Hara. Blessed One is very compassionate to put that so lower down in the order. Anyway, talking about heroes, talking about intoxicants, and gossip at the street corner, and gossip at the well. Those days in Sri Lanka, a lot of people, we don't have town water coming into the house, so everyone will have to go to the well. So near the well, so it's a different type of place where all these ladies and boys get together, and they just keep chatting everything that is happening in the village or the town or in that area. So a talk of those dead and gone, and virtuous, useless talk, and talking about beginning of the world, about the ocean, about the eternal soul after death, talking about annihilation of the soul after death, and talking about others' prosperity, talking about others' less fortune, talking about virtuous sensuous pleasure, talking about self-mortification. So these are the 32 types of talks, and if we involve in them, and the Blessed One says that it will not do any good to anybody, it will be to the downfall of people, right? So when these 32 types of talks are there, Blessed One is specifying talk about modesty, appicchakata or appicchato. So when you talk about modesty, modesty is one of the main reasons that will bring the happiness. And a lot of people we know, we are unhappy because we are not modest in things. We have so much of needs, more needs than wants. Our demand is so high, and we have created a situation where the supply is less. If we can be happy with the amount of supply we get, then that is the modesty. And the modesty that the Blessed One is talking about is, if you are happy with the four main requirements for human being, and that can be considered the modesty. The four main requirements for human being is food, and then roof over your head, and clothes, and medicine. So those are the only things. We call it in Pali, Chivara, Pindapata, Senasana, Gilanapa. So these are the four requisites for a monk. And I would say, even for any living being, these are the four requisites, and especially a human being. And animals don't want clothes, they don't want roof overhead, but we do. And the Blessed One is compassionate enough to put those things into the list and tell, if you are happy with those things, with whatever you have, then that is the modesty. But now when we do things, we go to all sorts of restaurants for dinners and lunches, and whenever we get time, we take about 2 hours to decide which restaurants we should go to, and that 2 hours may be very very optimistic assumption, right? Sometimes some people take days and weeks and months to decide which restaurant to go to. So we are not modest when it just come to food. I'm not going to talk about clothing. I'm not going to talk about a roof overhead. And when there are only 3 or 4 people at home, but the house is enough for 100 people and so big. We don't do things just for our requirement. We just go way beyond, not to satisfy ourselves, but to be above, over and above of our neighbor, of our relatives, of our brothers and sisters. We have competition within ourselves instead of satisfying ourselves. So we never stay modest, and we don't talk about modesty. We talk about high things, how we can do this, how we can't do this, and things like that. So this modesty, although I'm talking about modesty of lay people, and even in temples, even in sometimes those who are wearing robes, it is very hard to see modesty. And there are a lot of things which are not necessary are happening, but they keep on keep on preaching about modesty. And during Buddha's time, some people have specifically practiced modesty, and they have taken a vow to determination to stay in a certain way without a roof, and living with just one meal a day, and wearing only taking only the allowed number of robes, and very simple, very modest life. So modesty, the simple term that we can use is enough. We never say enough, which is not in our vocabulary. We are always whether there is to see whether there is something more. And the word enough has completely gone out the window. I remember when I was working, as you all know, every year there is some performance appraisal. So in one of the performance appraisal, I mentioned, because they ask what your aspirations are, what you want to be next, and all sorts of stupid questions which don't have any meaning to me. So I wrote there, I am happy where I am. And then after seeing that, and next year I had to really suffer, because they were arranging so much of training, thinking that I'm really unhappy, unsatisfactory person in the job. So this is how the society, and if he can say no, it is not enough. If he can say no, I should be this, I should be that, and if we can say that we are suffering, then they will be happy, and they will consider that we are very energetic, industrious people. But if you say you are happy where you are and it is enough, then it is not enough for them. And for leaders, it is really not enough, because then they can't talk about development, they can't talk about progress. And so therefore, when they don't have people in the country, they get all the European countries, all the Western countries, they don't have their own production of human beings. They bring human beings from the other areas, where other countries, where the human beings are produced in abundance. So this is where a lot of Chinese, a lot of Indians, a lot of Sri Lankans, a lot of subcontinent people are going to Europe and going to Australia, going to America. So they want to, they don't know the word enough. They don't know how to be contented with. So they create a mess for themselves, since they don't know what modesty is. So in one of the situations in Sri Lanka, there has been a monk who has attained, who has become an arahant. And the words spreaded that this particular monk is a very achieved person, and everyone should go and worship him. And the word went to the king as well. So king, before everybody else, king wanted to go and worship him and be one of his great supporter. So monk saw the king is coming and then asked his assistant, just check whether that king's chariot is coming to this way. And the assistant said, yes, king's chariot is coming this way. You better be ready. And then what this monk did was, he completely removed the robe and he just went in the under robe and just a cover for his top part, and he just went outside and kept on drawing something on the floor. And for a monk to be without the robe is not very accepted thing, and for a monk to write something on the floor is totally unacceptable, and especially to higher ordained monks. And when the king saw this, king turned away and said, I don't think this monk is an achieved monk. If he's an achieved monk, he will never do something like this. So he turned away. And then the assistant started blaming the chief monk, saying what you did really is a stupid thing, because king came to see you, and if he had really come here, he would have received a lot of gifts and support from the king. So just because of the way you behave, we lost all that. And why that monk did was, if the monk really had accepted the king, then he would have completely lost his modesty, completely lost his seclusion, because people will come in queues and he will not have time at least to breathe. So that is the achievement. That is the development of the mind for achieved people. So therefore, contentment is rather modesty is one of very important factor, important element in a leader, which is very rare to find nowadays. Right. So when we practice mindfulness, that is what we are gradually learning, and we learn to be modest, to be contented with when the breath is gradually getting shallow, and we just try to keep on observing even the breath is no longer perceivable, and we try to be mindful about the absence of breath. And when people give reports about their practice, where the object has evolved into certain stages, and if they ask, what do I do next? If they ask why it is happening, if they ask how do I make my breath gross again, which means they are not contented. They are looking for something, right? So this, by listening to reports, or by accepting reports, or by asking reports, the teacher will be able to understand how the practice is progressing on one hand, and what sort of attitude the practitioner is developing. So therefore, these things are not things that you will have to, separately practice somewhere else and then come and do mindfulness. It is not so. When you practice mindfulness, irrespective of what sort of background, what sort of attitude, what sort of mentality you have had, with the practice of the mindfulness, you will start generating those things quietly. Because only thing you are taught is to observe whatever is happening. So that observation capability that one will start developing will give you modesty, whether you like it or not, because the mind will come out with so much of suggestions when you are sitting. You will not be able to keep your attention just to the object that is taken for the practice, and the mind will be going all over the universe. But you just keep observing. You are not trying to attack one and grab hold the other. So, which means indirectly you are teaching, you are allowing your mind not to behave the way that it has been behaving in the past. So gradually, mind learn that it is being observant is much more happier state compared to doing all what the mind is saying. Trying to do everything that the mind is saying will give you stress, will give you tension, will give you unsatisfactoriness. Just one word the Blessed One has used for all these things: stress, pressure, tension, depression, bipolar. For all that, Blessed One has used just one word: unsatisfactoriness. Because we don't have in our mind to observe whatever the state we are in. If we do that, then it is not only modesty. We gradually start becoming more and more contented. So this is when we are contented. We don't want lot of wealth. We don't want power. We don't want position. We don't want the strength of our body to be contented, right? So a lot of people think we should have so much of money, then only I will be happy. So people will never be happy because there is no end to earning money. And those who want to come to power, and they keep digging, but they will never receive the power that they are looking for, because when they come to one position, that is not enough. They want to go to the next. And similarly, when you want some post, some position rather, then again you will become a manager, and then you want to become assistant director, then you want to become a director, then you want to become the chairman, and after the chairman you want to become the group chairman, and then it never ends, and then you want to become the CEO, and finally you want to own the place. So like that, there are certain things that you are going after depending on your hierarchy of needs to be happy. But Blessed One just kicked off Maslow's hierarchy of need, and he said, you don't want any of those things if you just observe present moment, present place of yourself, and that is where the happiness is. That is where you have something that you can actually experience. Everything else in the future or in the past, which you are either running behind like a mad monkey to catch hold, or worrying about if it is past, you will be simply worrying about that you just could not do it then. But, none of these are really experiences. They're just mental states. Blessed One says happiness is a mental quality that you can have right here, right now, and of yourself. Don't look for right here, right now other people. Look for right here, right now of yourself. And if you are happy, then no matter what happens in the surrounding, no matter what other people do, because we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves. So if we change ourselves, we can simply ignore the rest of the world and we can live happily. And that is the teaching of the Buddha. And that is the empowerment of human beings that the Blessed One is trying to give to the world and produce to the world. So this quality of contentment, you all have experienced, and that comes with you know, when you have your attention to the object that you have selected, and when you see the breath, and you see observing the breath, so observing your walking, observing how your soul touches the ground, or what sort of feelings you have, and you forget the rest of the world. When you forget the rest of the world, so much of burden you have taken from your shoulders and thrown away, and you start feeling that content. You start feeling the contentment of right here, right now. So this is such a marvelous teaching that the Blessed One is giving, and it is not religious. It is not applicable to just one group of people, and it is for the entire humanity. So it is good that the humanity is now start thinking of the word mindfulness, but unfortunately, in the Western world, mindfulness is used for petty objectives, such as, if I put one word, optimization of sensual pleasure. Mindfulness is not for the optimization of sensual pleasure. Mindfulness is to reach the final happiness. So may you all be able to reach that final happiness practicing mindfulness. And we will talk about the other qualities that the Blessed One mentioned in this list in our next talk. So with that, blessings of the Noble Triple Gem to all of you. And now we can start the discussion.
Hello, Bhante.
Hello, Zach. How are you?
Quite good. That's my honest answer.
That's wonderful. Nice to hear.
Yeah. So, well, what does it mean to be honest? Can you explain that to me?
Right. You said honestly, quite good. What did that mean to you?
Like in alignment with my reality.
Yeah. Okay. So like that, if you are agreeing with your heart and the mind, then that is honesty.
Well, it's so abstract, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. I mean, there is nothing for you to hide. In a situation where you don't have anything to hide, then you're honest. But it's very hard to find 100% honesty.
So I just have one more question, and it's a bit of a strange one. This question is, in Buddhism, is the belief held that we chose the existence that we are currently living on this planet Earth?
Let me put it this way. If instead of rather than talking about choosing to live in the planet of Earth, in every situation, right, we are making choices. Even now, when you ask this question, it is your choice, right? So therefore, the Blessed One has, from his omniscient knowledge, and even we can see that, you know, when we practice, but we can find it. We can't find it, but since the Blessed One has said, then we can be aligned with it. What he's found was, what do you call, dependent origination. In dependent origination, the first one, how it starts is because of ignorance. Because of ignorance, then you will have fabrication, right? So fabrication means you choose, you intentionally do something, right? So doing something intentionally is what all the animals do all the time. And simply to get rid of ignorance, what the Blessed One says is, can you stop that reaction? Can you stop making a choice? Can you just observe? And you'll have to make a choice to observe as well. That's a different story. You'll have to make that choice. Otherwise, you will keep on choosing something else. So you make the choice not to choose in future. That is observation. That is mindfulness. Then the water starts flowing up the stream. Make sense?
Well, it's food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, to answer the question that you asked, so since we are in a constant process of choosing, definitely after our death, right, we choose a place for the next birth. And you have selected planet Earth because you have had that much of what do you call spirituality within you to come here. Everybody can't choose. Suppose, for example, a frog, right? And they don't know about spirituality. Or a dog, they don't know about spirituality. Or worm. What they know is their world, right? So for one or the other reason, we have had some merit for us to be born as a human being, and that we have made that choice because we have had spiritual background, and it's more important that the choice is when you have had the choice to come to the earth, then you also have had the sufficient merit to select the path of Buddhism, because there are so many other belief systems. And from those things, for you to select this particular thing, our thinking process must be very advanced, without which, even the Buddhists, even those who come to temple, they just go to the botry and offer some flowers and go home. They don't practice. So it is not just we have selected this, we have selected that, and we have selected Buddhism. Even from Buddhism, we have come far away to practice mindfulness. Right? So it's you said it's food for thoughts, right? So don't, since you are practicing mindfulness, what your mind is now trying to do is, good that you ask these questions, but don't take it as a food for thought. Don't keep on thinking about those things. The reason is, certain things the Blessed One has said, you can't think and find solutions because they are so complex. So therefore, simply what you will have to do is, if something happens in your physical process, if something happens in your mental process, you just observe it and stop making choices and create another existence. Now, when you say food for thought, you are creating another level of existence. Does it make sense?
Well, it's quite funny because it makes sense, but only when I think about it.
Yeah, because human beings are usually in four realms. One is the physical realm that we all of us know, and then the subtle physical realm. That is, when we practice, we go to a subtle physical realm, and then once we go after the subtle physical realm, we go to the non-matter, and that is also a state where we get hooked upon. That is mentality. And even after mentality, we will go to finer immaterial, finer non-matter. And when you get there, then you are completely hooked. And you get there only when you have food for thought, only when you keep on thinking. If you observe, they will not flourish. They will not get water. They will not get manure. They will not get sufficient temperature. So they will not grow. They will die. So therefore, don't overthink of those things. But if you have a question, put forward and get it clarified. But don't carry it as something that is lingering in your mind for a long time.
I understand. So thank you for your answer.
No worries, my pleasure. Anybody else? Teruvan Saranai, Steve.
Don't really have much to report on the meditation this evening. Been meditating quite a lot since this morning, just because it was my day off. I did, however, read a book yesterday that got me quite drawn into it, and I ended up reading half the book. And it was about meditations. And then when it got to the meditations part, which is usually the juicy part, I actually stopped reading it because the first half of the book was, it just resonated with me really well, and it actually made sense of the first time. Probably about awareness, if anything. So after reading the book, I sort of put it to practice, and I went downstairs and made a coffee, but literally took awareness, I think, to another level than I normally would. And I sort of observed everything I was doing, from, you know, putting my hand on the bed to get out of the bed, my feet landing on the floor, me walking down the stairs and realizing the front of my feet was touching the stairs instead of the back, as if I was walking, you know, on a flat surface. And then holding the kettle, putting the water in the kettle, flicking the kettle on, putting the spoon into the coffee. It was quite surreal sensation I haven't really had before, but I must say it was quite enjoyable. And then going up the stairs, I also noticed my foot was landing on a flat, you know, more parallel to the surface. And I was just noticing all these things. And then I went to the toilet. I won't explain that part. And then, so that's one thing I've noticed, which I was really sort of grateful for, if anything. But I woke up this morning and had to sort of check myself to bring myself back to that state I had last night. Which didn't quite get to the stage I was in last night as soon as I finished reading that part of the book. And then the second part I have to report was I tried sitting down in a chair meditating outside because it was a nice day today. And the thing I noticed that I haven't noticed before with previous meditations was like the tip of my hair, like just the tips of my hair felt like static electricity kind of feeling if someone was, you know, kind of rubbing it. And it was a good feeling, and I didn't obviously touch it. I was just aware of it. That's my reporting for today.
Good. About the initial part about the book that you were talking about, was it something that was in the book? To be aware of each and everything that you do?
It was, yeah. It wasn't necessarily Buddhist focused. It was a bit of a controversial kind of, I suppose you could say, guru, but I find, you know, I get drawn to him from time to time over the years. It was Bhagwan Sri Ranjish. And the book was just called Meditations. And, you know, I've read one of his books probably 6-7 years ago, and it kind of sparked a few things with me. but his meditation techniques I find a little bit dramatic, so I didn't want to read them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what has happened is you had this even before you read this book. You had this quality, but it has started resonating after reading the book. It has triggered after reading the book. Especially today is a day where everything is relaxed with you. So everything has absorbed into you, and you have been able to, be with the book, be with awareness, even after reading the book. And why I say it's something that you had even before reading the book is because, do you remember the other day you said, after doing walking mindfulness and when you keep walking to the temple, you felt that you are not hurrying up and you are still doing the walking meditation. So in other words, when you practice awareness, awareness becomes part of your way of living. Right? So that book has just given you the trigger to take what you already have into practice. So, and the other day I said, when you said about walking, don't worry, and you were a bit worried that you will have the same thing at work and it's going to be a nightmare. And I said, no, it will be at work, but you will be doing things in a much better way since you are not wasting your energy, since you are conserving your energy. So this is how it starts. And it has been with you, and the book has just triggered it once again. And the funny part is this: you said you tried to get to the same state on the following day, and you didn't get it. And the reason is there are certain things that has to happen for you to come to that state. Number one is non-expectation. When these things happened, you did not have any expectation. But only thing you did was you observed the present moment. If you observe the present moment, that will become the reason, that will become the cause for the result. Now here, because you have had a good result, you are expecting that now without providing causes. You provide the cause, but over and above that, you have an expectation instead of observing. So therefore, your observation is now diluted. Because of that diluted observation, you will not go to that state. And this is something that happens naturally as well. It is not a mistake. This is the usual habit. This is the usual way that happens to everybody, because we have been stressed and attacked mentally and physically by our sense faculties. Now we have something, when we go beyond sense faculties, something to give better happiness. So why not we expect that is a reasonable question. But again, that having an expectation and not achieving the state is a confirmation of how you should practice. In other words, just observe the present moment, don't expect anything, then you will get to that state once again, because you have had it, and from the book it has been triggered to you. So there is nothing to worry. Only thing is take away the expectation, just observe the present moment, present phase of yourself. It will be right there. And it is a Buddhist thing. The Blessed One calls it clear comprehension. And he has mentioned that if you read 4 foundations of mindfulness and observations of the body and 3rd chapter, Blessed One is very clearly observing all what you mentioned. So it is directly from Buddha. Well done. Teruvan Sarana. And about that head massaging thing, just keep on doing that. Those things happen when you're on the right path, right track. So whatever that comes up, just keep observing. So you have done the right thing. So nothing to worry or nothing to suspect about that experience. All right. Teruvan Sarana.
Teruvan Sarana.
Teruvan Sarana. Anybody else, Chatu?
Bante, in your talk, I think what I understood was that we choose the emotions that we're feeling, whether it's happy, sad, contentment. So if we are in a sad state, is it something like to recognize that, to be aware of it, and then make a conscious decision to change that to contentment or happiness? How do you work with that?
Yeah. When you are in a sad state, a lot of people say is do something to make it better, to make it contented, and then make it happy. But the Blessed One is simply saying, no, don't do anything. Just keep observing how it affects mentally, how it affects physically, and just accept that you are sad. If you try to do something, you simply do it because you hate the sadness, because you don't like the sadness. So if you try to do that, temporarily you will feel that you are recovered, but it will be like Western medication. The cause of the disease will be underneath. It will be just suppression. So what the Blessed One says is, you are sad because of something that you didn't like has happened, right? So if you don't like the sadness as well, you are establishing the fact that you are not happy with losing pain. So therefore, let it come up. You keep observing, and if there is anything else below water, and let it come up as well. If you keep on observing, it will simply increase your patience. And we are not doing it in the society. We are doing it in a laboratory, which is our practice. So when we practice, when you try to sit, or when you do your walking, if you are in a sad state, that is what is always coming up and bothering you. Always it is coming up and bothering. I remember when I left home to be a monk, all the time these emotions are coming and bothering me all the time. Throw away the robe and go home and be with the family and all that. And these people are suffering so much because you have left, and all those things are coming up. So sometimes it is very hard. You completely forget that you should be observant with it, and you will get entangled with it, right? So once you have gone entangled with it, and then there will have one or the other point to say that you are thinking about it and that you are sad about it. And from that point onwards, you start becoming mindful. You start becoming observant of that. And you just let the mind to keep giving those thoughts that makes us sad, that makes us unhappy. And you simply observe as if we are watching a movie.
Is that like steps towards acceptance in doing that?
It is acceptance. It is acceptance. What happens is, when you keep on accepting and when you are not fighting with, then that hatred which fuels the sadness gradually fades away, because you are not now hating the sadness. So the very thing that feeds sadness is now gradually losing its ground.
Thank you.
Right. So what you, rather than getting rid of the sadness, what you simply do is you get avoided to create sadness. And that training is taken from sadness itself, from the very fruit itself. If it makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. May you be happy.
Thank you.
This one, Sarah. Right. Anybody else?
I think we don't have any more questions, Bante.
Hanuka, do you want to contribute anything? Do you have anything, any discussion point?
I just have a question of curiosity. It's something I have been having lately.
Mhm.
I was just wondering, when you're on a spiritual path, I was wondering if you believe in a different energy, or like a different kind of energy, like beyond your awareness, that keeps guiding you on the right path. For me, like an example could be like synchronicities or like signs. You know, when you feel like
Yeah.
you're not on the right path. Yeah, I was wondering if you have any belief in that side of things.
You will have to explain it a bit further, because the word synchronizing or whatever you mentioned, I'm not very familiar with. And science, of course, I can think.
It's pretty much you take things as like signs from the universe.
Yeah. Okay.
And
universal energies.
Universal energies. Yeah. I was just wondering if you believe in anything like that.
Okay. Yes. Now, in with the Sri Lankan group, I'm discussing a discourse which we call Brahmajala Sutta. I'm not quite sure what its English term is. And that discourse is explaining how the universal energies will take you out of the practice. Because when we keep on practicing, we will develop a tremendous amount of concentration. And that concentration will open up two paths. One is the spiritual path, where the Blessed One takes us to the final liberation and no more sorrow, no more birth. But the other one is psychic powers. So if you go on the path of the psychic powers, you accumulate, you keep on going with the path of suffering only. So it may be universal energy, it may be anything else, or our usual science. Usual science has not at least come close to meditation or the mindfulness. Even the universal energy will not lead you to the right path, but it may be attractive, and it may happen to the practitioners. If it happens to the practitioners, the first and foremost thing that you should keep in mind is simply label it as it is. Don't try to get engaged with it. Don't try to identify yourself with it. Don't try to indulge in it. They may be true, but keep on observing, keep on labeling. If some visions are coming, just keep labeling, seeing, knowing. Then you don't try to stop them, you don't try to hate them, but you simply become aware. As a result, ignorance that gives such states will lose its ground. When the ignorance is losing its ground, although it comes up, it will not be able to hook you onto it.
Can you please redefine? Can you please redefine the ignorance part? So,
yeah, the ignorance means when we do things, since we are not really aware of what's happening right here, right now.
Right now, yeah.
So as soon as something happens, as soon say a simple example, if you see when you walk on the road, if you see a beautiful girl, there is no force in you that you can see is triggering to turn around and look at her.
Yeah.
It happens so fast. But why it happens is the ignorance. What is the ignorance? We were not aware that our eye is active now. We were not aware that our eye has taken a form outside. Immediately, the mind is working so fast to say it's a beautiful girl. It's not a girl, it's beautiful girl. But so far as the eye is concerned, eye has not seen a beautiful girl. Eye has seen just an object that the eye can perceive. The beautiful part and girl part has come from our mind, from our ignorance, to the fact that it was a form to the eye. So that's the ignorance part.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a question I had in mind because I'm still experiencing those universal energies, and it was still like those same energies. I think you remember that led me into kind of like on the wrong path.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was the same energies that kind of put me back on the right path. So I was just very curious about that.
Yeah.
So it gets you questioning.
Yeah, and coming, those energies are those energies don't put you on the right path, or don't put you on the wrong
Yeah.
path. I'm sorry, I'm repeating it. Those energies will not put you on the wrong path. Those energies are coming up because of your negativities are draining out. So those are the negative energies that goes out.
Yeah.
If you try to give some interpretation to those things that it is a universal energy, then it becomes a hook.
Yeah.
So let those energies come up. Let those energies go from your system, or anything happen.
Yeah.
Your duty is simply to observe. Don't give any sort of interpretation, analysis, classification of those things.
Yeah. I think it was like it was around this time last year that I properly started my practice.
Yeah.
And since the start, I struggled to observe my breath because I was like so hooked on to like following these energies. It was only until a few weeks ago that I remember telling you when I really struggled with like the painful energies like coming up from my legs. And so I was experiencing the pain and then the relief. It was on like a daily basis, but eventually it started happening during the practice. So I was experiencing pain and then relief, and then pain again, and then the relief. And then it was only yesterday the two kind of matched up. So like I kind of like started forgetting about the relief. I was just with the pain. So I told Dad about it because like I was really happy. Like I finally got to that place. And then only today, like during the practice today, like literally just then, when the monk said to like observe the breath, that was literally the first time in years that I was able to observe my breath. Like so like I think those energies are coming out, and I could feel them like a lot more, like instead of like calling it as painful, like I could observe those energies rather than feel the pain. I don't know if you understand.
And you can observe them as energies instead of identifying them either as pleasant or unpleasant. So there are a few things in what you just said. Number one, you said you aren't able to observe the breath, but today you were able to observe the breath.
Right? Like reason, as a because
reason why you weren't able to observe the breath is because you have gone beyond the breath. You have gone beyond the breath, and your attention is in the body, and your attention is deep in the body, and you have gone to the energy layers of the body, and you have gone to identify that they are painful, which means you are beyond the body and you are in the mental side of our existence. So therefore, in that arena, you don't have breath. So it is not compulsory for you to be breath the whole time you are practicing. And it is just an entry point only. And so therefore, if you don't have anything, keep in mind what you observe is the right here, right now of ourselves. So therefore, whatever is there, you observe, and which you have been doing. Now the question is why you started feeling your respiration today is because now your mind has changed identifying these things as yours. Your self-identification of the events happening has depreciated to some extent. So when it depreciates, mind naturally will come to the body and settle down, because mind is not having any other place to go. Mind cannot go to the pain and say that it is unpleasant. Mind cannot go to the pain and say that it is pleasant. Mind is not unnecessarily thinking. Mind is not going all over the universe as well. So the mind has no place to go. So it comes to the body. So when it comes to the body, so now the breath that you feel is a lot of settled breath. A breath where a lot of energies have been taken away. A breath which has been purified. And of course, not the breath has been purified. A mind which is purified is observing the breath that is naturally taking place within the system. And that breath is also much subtler because your mind is not muddled with things, because your mind is not busy with other things, because your mind is not entangled with other things. You have a very efficient mind, and that efficient mind requires very little amount of fuel, which is your breath. And therefore, you observe that, and that naturally happens when you scan the body. And that may lead to another episode. We will see how it comes next time.
Yep. Thank you very much, Simon.
Everyone, and Chatu, if there isn't anybody, we can pass on the merit as usual and conclude the session. We have generated tremendous amount of merit by practicing as well as discussion and from the talk. So these positive energies we can share with the other realms and our departed relatives if there is anyone expecting such energies. So I will ask Chatu to chant the traditional stanzas in English to pass on the merit.